I just want to give a really quick introduction about the event tonight. So, as you know, I'm Joyce Strong, and my business is called Total Well Coach, and I am the founder of Confident Women Consortium. And I started this group as a way for us to get to know our neighbors and know the people around us. I personally wanted to meet confident women and help boost my own. I feel like inside of me there's more to grow and more to do, and so I wanted to sort of build a tribe of that and have it. And this is right down the street from where I live and where I work. So that's what's behind it. It's a chance for us to network in a pretty casual way, not being sold anything. Of course, you know, I have a business. This is Caryl Mix, by the way, who you've met, and Carol's a coach. And we have businesses, and of course we want you to know about us, but we are people too, and we want to be around all of you because we're all going to learn together. So thank you so much for coming and trusting us and taking the leap. And I think you're all really brave the first time you come here and you don't know what to expect. And thanks to the Groton and to the Groton channel for recording us tonight. Caryl Mix is a coach, and Caryl is spelled with a Y, so when you look her up, it's carylmix.com, and she's out of Lowell. And from there, I'm going to let her tell you about herself because there's a lot to tell. So thank you so much for coming tonight.
Of course, thank you.
And let go and be dragged, or
let go or be dragged. Let go or be dragged. You don't want to be dragged. Welcome, welcome, ladies. I'm so excited to be here with all of you this evening. Thank you so much, Joyce, for having me and bringing this very important topic to the table. This is definitely one of the topics that we don't talk about is letting go. How do we let go, right? Because if we don't let go, we are for sure being dragged. I know I have been. You'll hear about that in a little bit. So before I dive into the content, I just want to tell you a little bit about me so you know who I am and how I got to be standing here in front of you tonight. So I am Caryl Mix, as she had shared. I am the founder of CarylMix.com and the creator of the See Yourself to Success system. And for the past 21 years, I've been an entrepreneur right in the Lowell area. I am a mother of 3. I've been married for 20 years with my husband for 25 years, 25 glorious years. You're going to hear a little bit about that pretty soon. So the topic of, letting go or being dragged come up for me as my life was falling apart over and over, and I was holding on so hard, and I was being dragged. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'll share some of the chapters of my story. So, as I had said, I had owned several businesses in the last 21 years. And one of the businesses that I owned, my first brick and mortar, I had just sold it actually. Welcome. And so it was a laundromat. And it was in a plaza. And several years ago, it was part of a $13 million renovation. So it was a 2.5-year process to take this entire plaza, knock it down, and build it back up again. Well, within that 2.5-year process, it took the 20-year business that I purchased and it cut it to less than half. So at the same time that this was all going on, my husband broke his lower back in a workplace injury. We had no idea what we were going to do. It was absolutely devastating. And at the same time that that was happening, I was struggling with severe anemia, such to the point that I was one step away from a full blood transfusion. I had no idea what to do with one of these things, let alone all 3 of these things happening at once. So it was like physically, emotionally, mentally, everything was crumbling down around me, and I didn't know what to do about it. So obviously I couldn't just sit there. I had to get up and do something. And in the process of that, I found myself in the cancer center at Lowell General Hospital, which is a fantastic place, for 26 weeks of iron infusions. 26 weeks and all of this stuff going on. And at that time, my mindset was, I don't have time to be sick. I don't have time for this. My kids were in sports. My business was being torn apart. My husband needed to get to his appointments. I don't have time to be sitting here. How many people have ever felt, I don't even have time to be sick, right? Like, please don't let me get sick, not right now, because I got too much in play, right? So now, 26 weeks locked in a chair, are you kidding me? So of course I did what I normally do, is rage, right? Because now I'm upset, I'm mad at the world that I'm this sick, and everything felt out of control. I was hanging on for dear life. So every week I would roll up, I would sit down, and I would white knuckle that chair, so angry. I don't have time. And then I would be going over all the things that I wasn't doing while I was sitting in that chair, where I was supposed to be, what I was missing, da, 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 da. My anxiety was so jacked up all the time anyway, and I really wasn't paying attention to it because I had things to do. I was so busy, and I had to be hanging on, and I was hanging on for dear life. I was really in survival mode. And it was about halfway through this 26 weeks where I had this woman come in, and she was significantly older than I was. And when you're in the cancer center, there's various people with various illnesses, in progress. And clearly this woman was really sick, and she was very frail. And she came in, and we met eye to eye. We looked eye to eye, and she was so gentle, and her energy was so kind and peaceful. And there I am, all nasty in that chair. And that was, boom, the wake-up call that I needed. It was like, who did I think that I was, sitting here in this chair with this salty attitude, right? And then here's this woman who's clearly suffering more than I am, and she's peaceful. And that was exactly what I needed. From that moment, a little tiny seed of gratitude had formed for me. Like, you know what, things could be a lot worse. And I felt that all the way into my core. From then on, each week that I showed up, I began to get it, that this was the only time and space that I was alone and by myself. Nobody was asking me to get them things, find them things, my shoes, my books, take me, get me, will you, I need. Nobody, no employees, no husband, no kids, no business, no worries. Actually, people brought me food. It was kind of cool, right? So at this point, I'm like, okay. And from there, it was 1 hour a week that I began to see that it was my time for me. And then I began to see that, okay, I've got to keep this up. So when I did finish my treatments, I did get better. My husband healed, went on to have more surgeries. We're not going to talk about that chapter tonight. But the business was fine. I had to build that all back up. And now it actually, looking at all of this stuff that had happened, I had to look back and say, how did I get through all of that at that time in my life? Because it was, a couple years span. And that's how I created the See Yourself to Success system. I looked at, and I was meeting these really high goals still. How I was doing it, I didn't know. But when I saw that I was doing the same steps over and over again without knowing it, I was like, I'm on to something. So I'm going to share of See Yourself to Success with you tonight. Obviously, I can't dive into all of it, but I'm going to give you at least some steps to get you started so you can start to have some changes for yourself this evening. And I'm also going to share another story with you about how I had gone deeper into the work where I am now as a coach. So as I had said, having all of these changes happen at once and such a massive impact in my life, I was like, you know what? I'm not sharing this to tell you, oh wow, look what she's been through. It's more of, if there's an area of your life that feels like it's falling apart, if you feel like you're struggling in many areas of your life, it's okay. You're going to get through it. And the other part that I have come to realize is that there's always a catalyst. Somewhere there's a catalyst in your life. Maybe you don't know who, what, when, or where that catalyst is going to be. That woman that looked me in the eyes so gently, she was a catalyst for me to realize, hey, you know what? There's some gratitude to be seen here, compassion towards other people. And then I had to learn compassion for myself. So look for your catalyst. They are here and around you. Maybe they're sitting with you tonight, right? So I'm going to dive into another quick story. Now this is a lot on here. And I'm not an artist, ladies. but my stick figure does have some gorgeous shoes on. So yeah, I have that for you tonight, right? So here's the cyclone of chaos. So you know how we all have this friend that we've been friends with forever, and we barely have the time because our work schedules vary. We never get to see them, but when we talk to them, we get caught up for, the 6 months or the year that we hadn't seen them. So I was having this conversation with a friend, and we're getting caught up on the kids, on work, our lives, what's going on, and she was saying to me, she's like, oh my God, I feel like I'm in this cyclone. She's like, I feel like everything's swirling around me, and I just can't put my hands on any of it. And I was like, yeah, me too, right? So we could identify, off we went, and then it just wouldn't leave me, the cyclone of chaos, the cyclone of chaos. I'm like, interesting. I'm like, what does my chaos look like? And at the time, this was some of the chaos that was going on in my life. My husband was injured at work again. He worked for UPS, and it's dangerous. He's moving a lot, so he's home injured again. If y'all haven't spent 24/7 with your husbands in your house, again, we're not going to talk about that. We're on camera. There'll be proof. But my business I was selling my business at the time. It was a 15-year business. I hung on to that business. I had a team of women that worked with me. I love those women. I love the customers. Massive connection for me. But I was hanging on to this business that I totally should have let go of years ago. I was afraid. I had a lot of fear in there. I'm in chronic pain. I was in 2 car accidents, consecutive car accidents. At the time that this conversation had happened and I started looking at my timeline of chaos, I had a doctor say to me, this is your new norm. Get used to this. For the rest of your life, this is what you're going to be with. And it drastically changed my body. Now I have to live with and accept that. I was hanging on to who I used to be, to what my body used to feel like. I couldn't do the things that I used to do that I wanted to do. And I had to step into that new space. Didn't want to. My father-in-law passed away. It was horrific. My in-laws were down in Florida, and they were so far away from us, and he passed on. They had been married for over 50 years. It was devastating to our family. I had one child who was having an issue at school, a bullying issue. She was working her way through that. That's heavy to carry. That's a lot to carry, just that alone. Then my husband's uncle passed away, and he was his mentor, one of his most favorite people in the world. He passed on. I had a son struggling to find work and a career. If you've ever had a child who's doing the free fall, that age where he's trying to figure out who I am, what am I going to do, where am I going to be in life, and try to find his way, we carry that as well. Menopause showed up like a freight train. That was fun. So fun, right? And then a hormonal teen girl, yeah, in the house together. All the boys wanted to leave, right? But this is now going on. I wonder why, right? My son was buying his first home. Yay! And then he got injured at the same time, so more stress. My 20-year marriage at this point was falling apart. We were talking about divorcing, seriously talking about divorcing. Who are we now? I've changed, he's changed, and this is like, people are not talking about what happens in a long-term relationship when you show up and you're like, who the hell are you? Or you've changed, no, you've changed, and I'm the same, so all that stuff going on, that my marriage was falling apart, and at the same time, as I'm trying to release this, who am I? What am I going to do? Who am I going to become if I don't own this laundromat? What am I going to do? So here I am in my fabulous shoes, in this chaos, wondering how am I going to get through it? And what was happening as I had gone through it is all this fear. This was all fear-based, and I was hanging on and focused on the fear intensely, and I wasn't listening to the one thing that I should have been listening to, and that was my intuition. I wasn't listening to what my body was saying to me. My body was talking to me. My body was screaming at me. And I was just like, So I was back in that crazy space again. So how do we get through that? How do we let go of things when it feels you have a lot of fear, uncertainty? There was a lot of uncertainty here. How do you find your way through it? And it took some time, again, looking through all of these and working through all of these pieces to recognize that I was super disconnected from me. And all of these things, I was disconnected from myself, from what I needed and what I wanted. What sets my soul on fire? I wasn't thinking about any of that, like my hair was on fire. That's how I live my life, you know? So think about that for yourself. Can you relate to the cyclone of chaos? Anybody here? So life is just so busy, right? So sometimes it's just stepping out and taking a look at it and determining how disconnected are we, and in what areas of our lives are we disconnected? So what does your fear in chaos look like? Anybody? Joyce, do you have any fear or chaos that you'd like to share?
Sure.
Hit me, girl, hit me. Make it better than what I have. No, I'm just kidding. This is not a contest, y'all. It is not. We are all the same.
Well, I don't know how much to be able to pick up on this, but I had a business for 25 years, a medical transcription business, and it was paying the bills and made a lot of money, but I hated it, and I was miserable, and I was glued to a chair and a computer.
Wow.
And that was hard, and I was just so embroiled. It was hard for me to imagine any way to get out of it, and anyone who tried to help me, I was like, it's impossible. It can't be done. I felt like in jail.
So trapped.
Trapped.
So a trapped feeling, absolutely, by work. And if that's what's paying the bills, then how do you weigh that, right?
Yeah.
So sure.
And there were too many ways to not be able, too many things keeping me embroiled in it.
Sure.
It's almost like a spool of thread or tape that you can't find the beginning.
There was no beginning and there was no end.
There's no way out of this.
And it sounds like you were lost and detached from your soul and what it is that you needed for you to feed you.
Yeah, I had no idea where I was. I was in a box.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Can anybody else identify with that, being trapped or feeling like I'm stuck in this position, this is what I have to do because it's paying the bills, right? I mean, I felt that, absolutely. And especially when you build it yourself too, because you're vested in that emotionally. You put in all this work. I didn't come this far to only come to here. And then you're like, but here. And I'll have to ask, did your body give you any indications that this was not the right path?
If you think maybe breast cancer is a wake-up call, yeah.
Yes, breast cancer is a wake-up call. Your body was talking.
I sat in that chair.
Wow, yes.
Doing all that, but yeah.
Yeah, it's scary. Yes, it told you. So yes, thank you for that. Anybody else? Any fear or chaos or things that are happening for you? No. Okay. Well, okay, so maybe could you identify with what was going on in my cyclone then? Maybe have some of those areas or things touched your lives as well?
The stuff about the kids. I have 3 kids, so
Yeah.
Worried about them and yourself, and
Yeah.
you know, it's always them first.
Yeah, so it's the management of the people that are in your home, right? Your kids, your children. So always making sure that they come first and taking care of them. And again, another place where that allows us to disconnect from ourselves because we're doing for everything and everyone else except for ourselves. So that's a perfect point, and I totally can relate, you know?
Their small worries are like, you know, your daughter being bullied, you know, are big worries for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and again, it's that out of control feeling. It's one thing if I could put my hands on it and kind of rectify the situation and then carry on, but it spills over in so many areas, and it's like, again, where's the beginning and where's the end point? And that's just one small thing. So it's the layering and the compounding of things that we're not letting go of that creates the drag. Does that make sense? So the chaos equals disconnect, right? We're disconnected from ourselves when it is crazy and hectic. And 3 ways that I have found through coaching women that they're dealing with it are pretend it's not there. It's not happening to me. So it's totally, more of the same, avoidance, denial. No, I'm fine. I'm fine. I got so good at I'm fine, I literally became the queen of calm in the chaos. I could be totally calm. I could have a fire all around me, and I'd just be like, I'm fine, I got this. And inside, I've got insomnia, my menopause, boom, because again, menopause symptoms, when they're flaring up in a negative way, is your body talking to you. It's saying, hey, pay attention here. And I was just, I'm fine. So I became numb. Or we fist fight it in others. That's another fun thing to do. So and fighting your body, migraines, exhaustion, burnout, insomnia, weight gain or loss, totally for me. I was about eating my feelings a lot, not using your voice or your talents, dimming my light. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to be over here. I'm going to be quiet and just get me through the day. I just got to survive. And then hiding in the cave. I'm just like, nope, I'm not coming out. I'm not going to deal with any of this. And right into myself as well. Totally not how I am naturally. I love being connected to people. So that was something that was another sign for me. Like, hey, you know what? You're super disconnected. You need connection. That was something that I was craving, but I just didn't know where to fit it in because everything felt so overwhelming. So fear has us hanging on with a death grip and disconnected from ourselves and others. So Joyce, could you pass out the diagnostic? I have a quick diagnostic for you to go through. You're just going to be answering yes or no. You don't have to share it out or yell the answer out, but it's again to just help you identify the areas where you could be disconnected in your life. Do you have your goals written out and on you right now? It's a yes or a no. Do you have someone in your life helping you crystallize your visions for the future? If I called you to stand up right now, could you give me a detailed description of your 3, 6, and 12-month goals? Section 2, commitment. Do you currently have personal standards set for yourself? Do you have a self-care ritual blocked out on your calendar at least once daily? Do you currently have a coach holding your feet to the fire when it comes to your goals? Number 3, connection. Do you purposefully connect with other women and business owners at least 3 times monthly? Have you connected with at least 3 people you don't know prior to sitting down tonight? Do you make it a point to first check in with your body prior to filling it with outside information and facts, as well as vices like food, alcohol, or shopping? That was a big one for me. As you can see, I drew some nice shoes on my stick figure. I'm just going to share that. Number 4, consistency. Have you purposefully pre-planned to eat 1 healthy meal today? We got it here tonight, though. Thank you, Joyce. That was amazing. It was really great food. Have you purposefully exercised at least 3 times a week in the last 30 days? And do you pre-plan your to-do list prior to going to bed each night? And number 5, celebrate you. Have you had a professional photo taken of you in your soul fire within the last year? Your soul fire is just what really lights you up, what makes you feel great and beautiful. Now, here now, not when I lose 10 pounds or when I go over here and do this and that. No, right now, your soul fire. Do you reward yourself with an indulgence when you accomplish a goal? And do you have a daily gratitude practice that celebrates you? That is key as well. So to answer the diagnostic, 1 to 5 no's means you're slightly disconnected. In some areas, maybe there's a little disconnection, that's okay. 5 to 10 no's is moderately disconnected. You're starting to feel it. You can feel it in different areas. Maybe there's some strain on some relationships or the strain on the relationship with yourself. If there is a relationship with yourself. When I was in my cyclone, there wasn't much of a relationship with me. It really wasn't. I was just running, trying to put out fires. 10 to 15 no's, you're barely hanging on. You're struggling, and it hurts. You can feel it. You know, there's something that I've got to do. I know I need to do something about this, but where do I even start? How do I begin? Again, you had such a perfect analogy with where's the beginning and where's the end of this, right? So how did we do? How did you do with, do we have 1 to 5 no's? Anybody?
I have a comment to make, though.
I'm going to move closer just so people at home can hear you.
So I recorded 5 no's, which I really had a hard time writing no on anything. Because I was like, I'm kind of doing that. I'm sort of
I told y'all about the kinda, right? I'm teasing you.
Well, yeah, it was really hard to tell the truth. Even to me. Like, you're not going to see this. And yeah.
Well, thank you for saying that out loud, because yes, it is. And it is hard. I think as we get older, I'm finding, and especially as an entrepreneur, how many entrepreneurs in the room tonight? Right? Nobody knows what we're doing. Nobody knows if I balanced my books or not and I'm at the beach, except for me, you know, and then I'm like, oh, wow, it's August and I haven't even balanced my books yet. Oh, I probably should do that. And then December, I'm like a crazy person, anxiety, right? So nobody is really watching us. So it really is critical, and in that practice, to face our own truths, own our truths. So in the fear, that's the dimming of the light as well, you know, speaking and owning your truth, even to yourself, right?
And I'm fine.
What's that?
I'm fine.
You're fine? Yeah, me too. We're all fine. So how about 5 to 10 no's? Anybody want to admit that out loud? Yeah. So moderately disconnected. Are you feeling any disconnect in your life? You raised your hand? 8 of them? Yeah. So, yeah. So, you know, in 10 to 15, do we have any 10 to 15s? You can just do this. Ready like this. Yeah, you know what? I've been all of these, okay? So I get it, I've felt it, you know what I mean? So this, again, not a place to judge or beat yourself up. Because again, standing and facing something, and especially when it's hard and uncomfortable, is the only way that we can start to do something about it. So we can open our hands and let go of whatever it is that we're holding on to that's holding us back, right? So there's the begin point. And the begin point is just looking at this and saying, okay, and feeling it. You don't have to do anything about it right now, but feel it and know, and then use it as leverage. Don't just, you know, accept it and carry on and walk out of here, but say, okay, I've opened my eyes a little bit to this, and that's okay to do. If you want to put your name, phone number, and email address, I'm going to do a drawing at the end for an amazing prize, so Joyce will collect those after. So feel free to put your names on there, and we will carry on to diving deeper. As I promised, again, this is just the beginning steps of See Yourself to Success. On the table, there's a little place for you to take notes if you wanted to take notes, or if you just wanted to listen, that's perfectly fine too. So the steps that I found and what I work with my clients with are clarity, commitment, connection, consistency, and celebrating. Obviously, that was what was on the diagnostic, right? So what I'm finding with a lot of women, when we are starting to come back home to kind of do our self-care and our soul care, is they really are, one of the biggest missteps is that they're lacking clarity. Like, what do I even want? I don't even know what I like. There was a point where I literally didn't even know my own favorite color. I was just like, whatever, I don't care, like it doesn't matter. I didn't want to think about that stuff. And I wasn't claiming any space for myself. I wasn't clear on what I wanted. So when we are diving deeper into that step, we're really identifying what is it that you want for you? What's going to give you joy? What's going to bring that passion up for you? And just one tiny, small step that you're taking for you, that's yours. You own that space. Nobody else is in it. It's your work. That's where you start to get crystal clear. As we move down to commitment, of course, we all look at our calendars and we're like, yeah, well, I ain't got time to do any of this fun, frivolous stuff that's for me. I got to do my have-dos. You know, and it was funny, I was working with a client, and I said, okay, we've got to get whatever it is that we've decided to work on onto the calendar. Break out your calendar, let's see. As she looked through, and she had this fabulous color-coded, colored pens, which I totally love, right? Her whole calendar just had it going on, but she's like, I can't do anything for me, and it was this small, tiny thing, until 30 days from now. And 30 days, and she just sat there, and she looked up at me, and she's like, well, and this one has to go here, and we gotta go here, and I didn't say anything. I just let it sink into her that she could not get to herself for 30 days, and she was like, oh, I had to work on that. And I'm like, yeah, girlfriend, you got it, right? So it's really, not only are we looking at the physical calendar and having the reality come back to us, but diving deeper into this step is really looking at our personal standards. And when my coach brought up to me personal standards, I was like, I don't even know what that means, you know? And he's like, well, when you go out to eat, do you like good service? I'm like, oh yeah, you betcha. I love me some good service. You know, when you go shopping, do you like good service? Of course. My standards are way up here for everything else. When I'm out with my children, do we behave nicely or do we behave like animals? Standards, right? What about my personal standards? I was like, ooh, well, I don't have that. So really, that was eye-opening for me to understand that I wasn't even maintaining a standard for myself. So it was like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym. And then I would go 2 times, and I'd be like, oh, I don't have time. And how was I expecting others in my life to show up for me when I couldn't even maintain the standard of showing up for myself? So it was like, okay, another light bulb. Where are my standards? So really diving into that. Connection. Now this part was my favorite part as I was crawling through the rubble of my life. I really had to, you know, when we set a goal for ourselves and we think in our minds that it's all about that goal that we want to accomplish, but what's really happening is as we're processing achieving that goal, it's how we feel while we're achieving it. That's what it is that we're looking for. It's not necessarily, I got the goal, I win, yay, and then run off to the next thing that we're going to be doing. It's really about how we feel in that process. So for me, I changed it up, and I decided to decide how I wanted to feel now. So a big, huge misstep that a lot of my clients have is that they don't even know how they want to feel. They're in survival mode, right? We're just trying to get through it. So instead of, oh, you know what, when I get here or when this wraps up, I'll feel this way, how about more joy now? How does that feel? How can I create joy and weave it throughout my busy, crazy day, and I'm feeling it now as opposed to when this deal settles? When this laundromat sells, I'll finally feel at peace. Nah, that was 9 months of people in and out. I want it, I don't, I want it. This deal fell apart. Not speaking to, you know, my customers about it, holding all this in. My staff didn't know. I didn't want to take them on that crazy train, right? So I really had to get connected to how do I want to feel and create that in small ways, little baby steps, right? Consistency. Do we show up consistently for ourselves? Do we show up consistently to what we want? And that is a really big place, again, where there's another hole or another break in that chain of if you're not consistently showing up for what it is that you want, Of course it's not going to happen, right? If I don't show up to the gym, if I don't consistently eat healthy, then it's not going to happen for me. And as I began working with more and more women, what I was finding was that their habits and rituals were the things that were moving them forward or moving them back from what they wanted. So we dive deeper here in this step of really looking at what are your rituals. You know, for me, I love to tell this story because every person can relate. I was a snoozer. I would hit that snooze, and I had this crazy 5-time snooze routine that I turn this way and again, turn this way. I get the thing in a closet. I'm digging through the closet because it's going to wake up other people. Like literally, I did this for years. Kids were late for school. Literally, you're laughing because you know it's true, right? But literally, my house was crazy. My kids were late. We're now fighting. Kid would get on the bus. I would cry. Oh, boy. Now I'm late for work. Oh, my God, okay. And I get to work, and I'm like, hey, guys, I'm here. No, that is crazy for years, all because I didn't look at my habits and my rituals. So I literally had to do something so drastic because then I would go, okay, I'm only going to hit it 2 times, and then I lied to myself. So we're back up here with my standards that I didn't have for myself. And then I would go fool around in the shower, and then I was cold, and I'd walk by the bed, and I'd be like, right back in the bed and start all over again. It was crazy. So I had to literally go from the shower straight outside in the dead of winter with, and there's pictures on the Facebook, y'all, with a down comforter around my head, and I literally would meditate and watch the sunrise. And the sky would change colors. And I was wrapped in, down is the most amazing warm thing ever. I felt I was in this cocoon, and the silence, just the silence of winter and the sky changing colors, it was again, the only time and space that I had silence, quiet with myself. And I could just feel the sky changing, and then the kids would walk by the slider and they'd open it and they're like, bye crazy, and then they'd shut the door and then off they would go. But that became my new ritual. Literally, bye crazy, what are you doing? And I'm like, but that is what shifted for me. I had to do something so drastic to break that pattern because literally for years those neural pathways and habits that I created were so ingrained. So I shifted. Now I walk in the morning. So I've been walking since May, 5 o'clock in the morning, because again, snooze was happening to me again. So it was like up off the side of the bed, pull the pants on, bed head, out the door, go. So, I never imagined, I have a friend, she walks her dog, and she had invited me one time, and I was like, and of course she got her tracker on Facebook, and she was doing 1.5, 2 miles, and I'm like, no. I'll visit you, I love you, I love the dog, but that is way too far for me, no thank you. So from May until now I'm hitting 4 miles a day. And I'm like, how am I 4 miles? I couldn't even fathom that at one point. But little by little, day by day, I got an accountability partner, and we were meeting halfway, and we laughed and talked. And there was one point, I will admit, that we would sit and chat, and people are walking their dogs in the morning before work, and this man is like, all right, I remember when you two used to walk, and he's walking by us with his dog, because we would be sitting there chatting, but we were still getting up and out and doing this and creating new habits. And then the last one is celebrate. And as I'm working with women, the one thing that we absolutely, almost every single time I do that diagnostic, there is no, no, no. And it's really acknowledging ourselves and really looking at what we've accomplished. How far have we come to where we are right now? You know, I used to look at all of those things in my life falling apart, and I would be like, oh, why can't I get it together? What is wrong with me? But now I realize that those are I made it through that. Those are accomplishments for me that I am now stronger and more resilient from. You know, so as I'm working with clients and really helping them to understand that all the ways that they're getting to where they've gotten, that's their work. They've done that. What's meant to be will stay, and what has crumbled and what's falling apart, it's going to fall away. And that's okay. It's meant to. Now, what are we going to build from here? So really learning how to celebrate ourselves and acknowledge ourselves instead of set the next goal and then on to the next thing. How many times have you accomplished what you wanted and then boom, you're right on to the next thing, right? We're not paying attention to, hey, you know what? I really did this and I accomplished this, and own it and be proud of that. So that is definitely one place where the self-esteem and our self-confidence, when we're lacking that, that's the one spot where we can zone right into it and say, hey, let's start here and really start to feel and connect to what it is that we've accomplished. So I have said a lot. So real quick, these 5 steps are clarity, commitment, connection, consistency, and celebrate. And again, like I said, what I found for me, and I've seen through people using this process, is sometimes when we start working on goals and we fall off because life is happening to us or happening around us, we get lost and we're like, oh, I don't want to start all over again. I just don't want to start all over again. It's really nice to have a system where you can go look at where it is that you're off, where you're disconnected, and say, no kidding, it's just my commitment to myself or my calendar. I haven't done that. You know where to jump right back on track. And that's something that, you know, thinking for yourselves moving forward, think where it is that you are in one of these steps. What is it that you are practicing for yourself or not? So you can get right back on instead of feeling like, I've got to go all the way back to the beginning. Because imagine what it can feel like when you start to make some traction for yourself. When you start to show up for you and start to discover you again. Because I know I'm not the only one in this room that is feeling like, you know what, everything and everyone is just pulling me in all these directions. We all feel that way. And it's funny, working this long that I have, as long as I have with women, I'm finding that the more men that I talk to, they're going through the same thing. You know, they really are. And we're over here feeling like we're carrying that emotional labor, but the labor that they're doing as well is just as hard. So when we start to have compassion for ourselves, we can really start to see and have compassion for others that are going through it, but also the men in our lives too. So I hope that you find this helpful. And again, Joyce, thank you so much for inviting me into the space and connecting with you wonderful ladies and sharing this experience, this journey that we call life. Thank you.